Welcome to a chip strategy video for Euro Fantasy Football, and I'm also going to be talking about the updates to my first draft, which I made over a week ago. I have made several changes. This isn't going to be the locked-in team. There may be even further changes before the deadline, but I will be letting you guys know in future team selection videos and all of that. But I'll be talking about why I've made some changes and how it kind of seeps into my chip strategy plans. And yeah, let's just get straight into it. My goalkeepers are the same as before, Donnarumma and Hradecky. And by the way, I'm going to maybe butcher some pronunciation, so if there are any natives, for example from Finland, and if you can correct me, then go ahead and I'll try take that on board, but hopefully I can get the majority of them spot on. But yeah, the kind of problem I have with these two goalkeepers, and I've mentioned this before in my first draft video, voice crack, in Matchday 2, Finland and Italy both play on the same day. So as I discussed before, and I'm going to make it clear in all of my videos for any of you who are new and who maybe don't fully understand yet, of course you can make substitutions as the tournament progresses and even just within a match day. So for example, in match day 1, Donnarumma plays on the first day and then Hradecky plays on the second day. If Donnarumma blanks, I'm able to substitute him out and Hradecky can come in and maybe get some points. But obviously I'd only do that if Donnarumma does pretty poorly and doesn't get the points I want. But the problem is, as I said before, in match day 2 they both play on the same day, so that's something to think about. That's not going to be an issue again in match day 3, and if both nations were to advance to the knockout stages, yeah, it probably wouldn't happen again, although maybe they would be in a similar pot, but I haven't fully checked that yet. But yeah, either way, we'll just wait and see what happens. That's looking a bit too far ahead. In terms of my defense, I have made several changes, and I've always said that defense is probably the kind of weakest part of my team, and it's the one that is susceptible to the most amount of changes. So Denayer stays in there from Belgium, and I think at 4.5 million, a regular starter for one of the favourites to win the tournament, it's kind of a no-brainer. He's not going to have a lot of attacking potential, but what he offers there is a consistency, and Belgium are actually pretty decent defensively, despite the fact that on paper their defenders aren't too good. They can keep plenty of clean sheets. They've got a good group where you'd expect them to do pretty well, and Denayer's a pretty popular option. He's 11% owned, so there is a reason for that. Kjaer also stays. Hopefully I didn't butcher that as well. He's a very popular pick, 23% ownership, and from Denmark he's probably the most nailed, and he's going to be, yeah, I think Denmark are probably the second, if not third best team in that group. They're going to be fighting with Russia, you would suspect. However, there are going to be some upsets across the tournament. We're going to have to be prepared for that. And you never know with international football. There's always a kind of a grain of uncertainty, and also just a kind of a bit of magic in there sometimes. So you never know. But Denmark are a decent team. I would expect them to possibly make it into the knockout stages, and Kjaer I think is a decent option from a decent team who have kept plenty of clean sheets throughout the qualifiers. Now the rest of my defense, however, I've made a lot of changes, and Pau Torres is in. However, I'll be honest, Laporte is the only Spanish centre-back that I think is nailed. The others, it could be Eric Garcia. Me personally, I think Pau Torres should play alongside Laporte. I don't care if they're both left-footed. They're both very good. They're the best centre-backs that Spain have other than Ramos. And yeah, I think Pau Torres is a good shout to start. However, it's not completely nailed. So the more friendlies that Spain play, for example, they play one today against Portugal, that's something I'm going to keep an eye on. And depending on the lineups we get and how many minutes players like Pau Torres get, they may stay in my team or also come out. But I think 4.5 million for a Spanish defender could be very good value for money. I wouldn't expect, you know, 3 clean sheets, but maybe they can keep 1, possibly 2 in the group stages, and then we'll see where they go from there. But I think Spain is a good option. They're a decent team this year, much better than they were in 2016. And then looking at the other defenders I have Vindal, or yeah, I'll just call him Owen, 7% ownership. I'll be honest though, it's just kind of cover for Netherlands. They could keep a clean sheet against teams like Macedonia, but Netherlands looks so poor. And I've talked about this before. Their record under Frank de Boer is very unimpressive, and defensively they look very, very poor. Going forward, Netherlands offer some good value, especially with players like Wijnaldum, Depay, but in the defence I'm not too sure about. And Vindal or Owen, I'm not too sure if he's going to stay in my team, but I think he's still a good option. And from the Netherlands defence, he's probably the one to go for. Will he completely nail that spot? I'm not too sure, but I think he's got a good chance of starting. The problem I have with assets like him is just not trusting the defence fully. So that's one that is going to be pending review, to be honest. And then we look at Bednarek. a good option, I think. Obviously, you don't want to have him for the second match day against Spain, but against Sweden as well, to be fair, I don't see a clean sheet, but the first game I think is a good way to start. And Poland are quite a defensive team. They play a 3 at the back or 5 at the back, depending on which way you want to look at it. But yeah, Bednarek is the most nailed Polish defender, and I think he could be good value for money. And I can't lie, I always have this image of him getting how many minus points against Manchester United from the 9-0 defeat early in the season. But hopefully none of that happens in Euro Fantasy Football, and I think Poland can be pretty good in the tournament and maybe make it into the knockout stages, maybe even a quarter-final, who knows, we'll wait and see. But I think Bednarek's decent. But as you can see across my whole defence, very cheap options. Maybe what I might start doing is going for maybe some assets from England like I had before. I'll be honest though, I look at Kyle Walker, I'm not too sure about him, but yeah, I might invest a bit more in my defence. That's something that I am considering, but I think ultimately you want to spend the bulk of your money on the premium forwards and midfielders. I think that's the key, but maybe a bit more money in the defence is needed. I have a lot of budget options who could offer great value for money, but there could be a lot of changes in there. Now, speaking of kind of budget, I did change Hollis, hopefully I pronounced that right, to Nego, and yeah, he's just pretty much the cheapest player in the game. That's the reason why he's 42% owned. He's an enabler. He should be getting plenty of minutes. He's not going to start every game, I think, but he can get some maybe substitution appearance points and stuff like that. He kind of ticks over, and you never know. Stranger things have happened. You know, we've looked at Lundstrom over the years and so many of these assets who are 4 million and then turn out to be a great buy. But yeah, not really going to hold the same level of expectation with Nego, but you know, hopefully he can do something. And as for my midfield, the rest of it, another Torres from Spain, Ferran Torres. He's got a great record and he's got plenty of goals in his last 4. I think in his last 4 appearances he's got 5 goals, and I think it's a good group from for Spain. I'll be honest though, I look at the Spanish national team and I don't see a free-flowing team, but what I do see is a team that can get plenty of wins, probably narrow ones, and if they do score, I think players like Ferran Torres, Dani Olmo, and maybe Moreno if he starts, I think they could be very good value for money. But once again, he's not someone I'm completely sold on, Ferran Torres, but he's a very talented young player and one of the bright sparks for Spain for sure. And it's kind of a shame that Ansu Fati isn't fit as well. Would have been great to see both of them on either side for Spain, but maybe in the future that could be a great partnership. And moving on to Chiesa, I had him in my first draft. I still have him. I'll be honest, this is one that's kind of pending the lineup that we're going to get in the first match day when Turkey play Italy to start the tournament off. So at 8 o'clock British summertime or GMT on the Friday 11th of June. So that's something that's going to be very important, because on the right hand side it could be Chiesa or Berardi starting. It's going to be very interesting to see who starts there, and to be honest, maybe it's a bit of a risky pick in general, because even if Berardi or Chiesa start in the first match day, the opposite could happen in match day 2 and match day 3. So not too sure about Chiesa, but I do think if he starts, he's one of the best assets you can get from Italy. And I think Italy are probably the dark horse of the tournament, or up there. Not many people are thinking about them, but they could even reach the semi-finals or have a very good tournament. We'll wait and see what happens there. But yeah, a great record under Mancini. He's won over 70% of his games as the Italian national team manager. So yeah, Chiesa, not too sure about him, I'll be honest, but cover from Italy is always good, and something to bear in mind. And also the same with Spain, and I think Netherlands and Germany and England. All of their matches are going to be at home, which is obviously very handy in an international tournament. So Italy, when they play Turkey, when they play Switzerland and Wales, all of them are going to be at home. As for my other midfielders, not too sure about them, to be honest. The same thing as before. I could get Mason Mount, for example, or Phil Foden, but yeah, I think Mount is going to offer you a bit more security of starts. Is he going to be an explosive asset who's going to just deliver so many points? I'm not too sure about that. I think he's just going to consistently start, maybe get an assist or goal here and there, but he's someone that I'm looking at and thinking maybe I could find better value elsewhere. So he's one that could be changed. He's owned by 32% of the game, so very popular choice, no differential for sure. Christian Eriksen, only 4% owned. He's got an insane record for Denmark with so many goals and assists. He's someone to keep an eye on. Obviously, the Belgium game isn't ideal, but plenty of points on offer potentially against Finland and Russia. And as I said before, I would expect Denmark and Russia to be fighting for second spot in the group, and they could even cause some problems to Belgium, especially with De Bruyne being out. So Eriksen's someone to consider, and I think if you want someone from Denmark, an attacking asset, Eriksen's the one to go for. But we'll wait and see what happens there. And as for my attack, I'm actually even more confident in it now. So 2 of them stay the same, Harry Kane and Lukaku. And as I said before, Harry Kane and England, all of the games are going to be at home in the group stages, so that's something to keep an eye on. Croatia isn't the best fixture on paper, so if you're looking at Matchday 1 specifically, from a fixtures point of view and also in terms of someone you can captain, maybe you could go for someone like Lewandowski, who plays Slovakia, or Mr. Ronaldo against Hungary. He's got a great record against them, by the way, with 5 goals in 3 appearances. So yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. So what I might do myself is potentially go for someone like Ronaldo or Lewandowski instead of Kane. They're going to be owned by fewer people in the game and potentially score more points, because Croatia's a difficult opponent. However, having said that, since the World Cup in 2018, Croatia have been very leaky defensively, and England can still score quite a few goals against them, but still, on paper, Croatia's a tough opponent, so maybe there are points to be gained elsewhere with players like Lewandowski and Cristiano Ronaldo. And Lukaku's going to stay. I want Belgium covering attack. I know De Bruyne being out is a bit of a shame and a bit of a blow for Belgium, but they should still be top in the group, definitely progressing to the next stages. And Lukaku still has plenty of service from players like Mertens, Eden Hazard, Tielemans. There's a lot of quality players in that midfield and on the wings, so I would still expect Lukaku to do very well. He's had a very impressive season. He's won the Serie A MVP, rightly so. So yeah, I think Lukaku's a fantastic option. He's owned by so many in the game for a reason. He's a quality player on the international stage and also club stage, to be fair. And one change I did make in my attack anyway was Depay coming in for Burak Yilmaz. So I look at Burak Yilmaz's group and Turkey in general. I think Turkey could actually go through. It's between them and Switzerland. But for 8 million, would I want to get Burak Yilmaz? I'm not too sure. He's also gotten plenty of yellow cards in Ligue 1 this season. That's something that kind of puts me off. He is on penalties. But I think Depay, I've looked at his record. He scored 2 goals the other day for the Netherlands. So he's just been very impressive, and he's someone that I've got my eye on. I think I'm going to be starting with him. Only 15% owned when you compare it to the likes of Kane and Lukaku, who are owned by over 40% of the game. I think Depay is a fantastic option and some great fixtures, and he could score in all of these games. Ukraine is probably the toughest opponent on paper, but still, Depay will do something if Netherlands score goals, for sure. And he's a very greedy player, so yeah, that's what we want in fantasy assets. People always talk about that with Salah. Depay is kind of similar in that regard, and I think he could be fantastic value at 10 million. And actually, I think last season in UCL Fantasy, so the 2019-2020 season, I had Depay and he was very good for me, so he's someone to keep an eye on for sure. And that's pretty much it in terms of my updated draft. There could be changes. Who would I most likely be changing? Very good question that you posed. Thank you very much. In terms of the defence, I think there's going to be plenty of changes there. As I said before, I'm going to be waiting to see what happens with Pau Torres and probably Vindel, because I don't trust Netherlands enough defensively, especially seeing the friendlies and how they've been playing. And yeah, against Germany, they did lose yesterday, I believe. And as for the midfield, I'd probably be looking at Christian Eriksen maybe could make way, Chiesa and Mount. To be honest, all of the midfielders are subject to change, or they could be changed, but most likely I'll be keeping 2 of them at least going into the first match day. As for the attack, that's probably the most nailed and kind of the area of my team that I'm the most confident in. However, as I briefly discussed before, there might be better value or it's actually just a better option to go for someone like Lewandowski or Cristiano Ronaldo for Matchday 1, especially if you're looking to play the Limitless in Matchday 2. And that's what I'm going to be talking about now. That's why a lot of these players you see on screen are very good fits for Matchday 1 and also Matchday 3. Some of them might have some very difficult Matchday 2 fixtures, for example, but it doesn't matter because you can play your Limitless chip, which, remember, it's basically like a free hit from FPL, but with unlimited budget restrictions. You can play that Matchday 2, and it's a very good option for you. Now, there's kind of this debate across the whole community about when is it best to play the Limitless chip. Now, this is subjective, and it's ultimately down to your opinion. I think I'm leaning towards Matchday 2. The reason why is because in Matchday 3 a lot of groups are going to be kind of wrapped up, there's going to be rotation, and it's going to be harder to predict the lineups. And I think in Matchday 2, where there's more to play for, everyone's going to be playing their best team pretty much, unless they have an easier fixture, so to speak, and they're preparing for matchday 3 where they want to beat the tougher opponent. That's the kind of only scenario where you could see something like that. So I look at my team, for example. Donnarumma in matchday 1 plays Turkey. To be honest, that's not an easy fixture. But then again, Switzerland isn't either, and it's between those two, in my opinion, for second spot in that group. And then in matchday 3, Donnarumma has Wales. But what I could do is have Donnarumma for matchday 1 and 3, and in matchday 2 go for someone else who has a better fixture in terms of the goalkeepers. The same with Vindal, to be fair. Does play Austria matchday 2. Could keep him for that, to be fair, but yeah, has good fixtures throughout the whole group stages. Do I trust Netherlands? That's another story. I'll be keeping you updated on that, of course. Denayer, this is a good example. So he plays Russia and Finland in matchdays 1 and 3, but arguably the toughest opponent for Belgium is in matchday 2, so that's where I could maybe get someone else instead of Denayer. And let's actually look at some of the fixtures for matchday 2. So what kind of teams could we target? So we'll go down the list. I'll be honest, I'm not really too interested in Group A players, but then Netherlands players I think are good options. Belgium, maybe if you have 2 or 3, you could maybe limit it down to 1, but still they could offer very good value. Croatia, potentially very good value there. England against Scotland, you would probably fancy England to win that game, so you could maybe triple up on England or something like that. I think Sweden's actually a good one in matchday 2. That is a team that aren't really going to be heavily backed, and a lot of people might not have them in matchday 2, but you could have some differentials in there, like Isaac, for example. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then France against Hungary, that is the standout, because you would expect France to win that game comprehensively, and there you could get a triple up in their team. You can get a defender and maybe 2 attackers, and you're set for that. And also Spain against Poland, you could maybe get some Spain players. You probably would want to avoid games like Portugal and Germany, but I do think that matchday 2, for me, the main reason why I'm leaning towards playing the Limitless chip in matchday 2 is because of the possible heavy rotation in matchday 3. However, we have to wait and see. You know, a lot of things can happen in terms of injuries, in terms of maybe some players being rested for the big games in matchday 3. But ultimately, what I think is going to happen is matchday 2 is going to be a better opportunity in terms of the majority of the top players and the top assets playing in that match day, and in matchday 3 that might be rested, and that's when you could play your wildcard potentially. But another thing that I'm thinking of doing is to play my wildcard in the quarter-final stages, if not maybe the semi-finals or final if need be. And the kind of good thing about that is a lot of people are going to be playing their wildcard in the group stages, possibly in matchday 3 to kind of counteract the rotation. But if you kind of save it, if you're able to save it up until the quarterfinals, there's going to be some upsets along the way. If a lot of kind of big teams and big heavily owned assets are knocked out in the round of 16, you're going to be in a kind of difficult situation going into the quarterfinals. You're going to have a lot of eliminated players. You might have to take hits to get a good squad overall, and maybe even a starting 11. But with a wild card, you can completely counteract that, and you can also start to target and identify the best teams, the best players throughout the tournament in terms of goals, assists, the best defenses, and you can fully focus on that. So I am leaning towards right now playing the Limitless chip in matchday 2 and the wildcard in the quarterfinals, but I am a bit flexible. I am willing to change it. I might even in the end play my Limitless in matchday 3 and my wildcard maybe in the group stages, or maybe just save it for the semi-finals or the final. You never know. And remember, there are unlimited transfers going into the round of 16, so don't worry about that. But yeah, going into the quarterfinals, I think it's a very good asset potentially to have the wildcard available. But as for the rest of my team and kind of why it plays into my chip strategy, you look at Kjaer. Once again, he plays Belgium in matchday 2. I wouldn't want to have him for that, so I can Limitless play the Limitless chip, and Kjaer would be nowhere near my team. And in matchday 1 and 3, he's in, and Denmark can maybe get a clean sheet or 2. So you never know. And Pau Torres, kind of similar. Poland is arguably the toughest opponent in their group. To be fair though, Sweden aren't no mugs either. Quite similarly balanced, I think, Sweden and Poland. They're going to be fighting a lot for second, maybe even the first spot, you never know. But matchday 3 is another good opportunity to have Spanish players. So yeah, I think a Limitless in matchday 2 also kind of plays into this team and my plans going forward. And Bednarek, same thing, plays Spain in matchday 2, but I can have him for matchday 1 and 3, where the opponents are a bit more favourable. But we'll wait and see. Nego I'm not really going to talk about because he's a budget option, but Christian Eriksen, for example, plays Belgium as well. Same thing as Kjaer. Mason Mount does play Scotland Matchday 2. I could keep him, or even just get different English players and maybe identify the more explosive assets that England have to offer. And to be honest, I don't see that happening with Mason Mount. That's why I never really went near him on FPL, because I always looked at him, same with UCL Fantasy, and I just didn't see too many double-digit hauls. But you never know. Maybe on the international stage, that's when Mason Mount does the business. And Chiesa is another one. Yeah, as I said with Donnarumma, Matchday 2 has Switzerland. So I think you get the point overall. Same with Kane, with Mount, Lukaku, same thing. Overall, what you want to do, I think, is just identify when you think you're going to use the Limitless chip, most likely anyway. Matchday 2, Matchday 3. You could even use it in the knockout stages, I will give you that. But the reason why I would suggest using it in the group stages is because there's going to be more poor teams, and there's going to be probably bigger score lines and more attacking football. In the knockout stages, you're going to have closer games, better teams, and also it's just teams are going to play more conservatively. They're going to have a kind of fear of losing, and it's going to be much more tactical. Not always, you never know. Remember Brazil versus Germany in the World Cup in 2014? These things can happen, and you can still do very well by playing your Limitless in the knockout stages. But another big reason why I would suggest using it in the group stages is because we have 100 million budget in the group stages. That increases to 105 million in the knockout stages. So I don't think the kind of need or the benefits of playing the Limitless are as great. But then again, it's completely up to you how you play it. I would suggest using it in the group stages. And I personally am going to be going for Matchday 2 at the moment. But I am willing to maybe look at Matchday 3. And I'm probably going to be avoiding Matchday 1 in terms of the Limitless. I'll just see how things go first and then push on from there. But that's my team. That's my chip strategy at the moment and my thoughts about it. And yeah, I'll be kind of keeping you lot updated in terms of, you know, possible players I'm going to be bringing in, because I already highlighted how many, 4, 5, 6 players that I could be getting rid of yet again, including Harry Kane, but obviously I already explained that sort of thing. So yeah, this team is definitely not locked in, no doubt about it. But let me know how your team is looking down in the comment section below, and yeah, what do you think is going to happen? Who do you think is going to win the Euros? Who do you think are the best captaincy options in Matchday 1 and also Matchday 2 and 3? Let me know. And yeah, which assets are you looking forward to having? Which nations are you going to be targeting, not only from an attacking point of view, but also defensively? Also, very good questions to pose at the moment. And yeah, enjoy the football. Good luck with Euro Fantasy Football. And if you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. There'll be more Euro Fantasy Football content in the channel. And yeah, I'll be actually talking about more of the teams we can target, like Slovakia, for example. Not trying to single them out, by the way, but I'm going to be kind of going into more stats, talking about some of the best players from the qualifiers, the friendlies that have just happened, and kind of more concrete knowledge and information on the possible lineups we're going to get in the Euros, which is going to be very important. We want to know who's going to be starting. We want to know the best value for money assets we can get and have a balanced team overall. I would suggest having a good bench as well, especially with this kind of variations in match days. So you have different days where you can make substitutions and changes in your captaincy. I think it's very important to have a balance between each single individual day within that match day in order to maximize your points. But thank you for watching this video. Good luck, and keep enjoying the Euros, Copa America, all of this stuff that's happening, and I'll see you next time.